All right, and we're episode 22 of a podcast for all seasons. We are going to be talking this week about Fox's Gotham. We're going to be talking a little bit about maybe some other shows, but that's going to be the majority of what we go over this week, and talk a little bit maybe new comics, some other maybe little pop culture news, but I'm going to turn it over to my co-host, Eric Joseph, and he's going to give us the general idea of what we're going to go over this week and start us off. What's up, Eric?
Hi, Josh, and hi to our listeners. This is Eric Joseph of DarkKnightNews.com, ComicBookMovie.com, and Multiverse Entertainment. As Josh said, our main topic for this week is Gotham, which premiered a little under 2 weeks ago on Fox to good ratings via Nielsen, and it's been a little divisive amongst fans. I think too many people are looking for literal interpretations, or I should say adaptations, of the Batman mythos and aren't taking this as a reimagining. And I'm going to keep playing the Smallville card throughout this episode, and Smallville was true to who Superman was, but yet created its own mythos in a sense, and I think that's very much what Gotham is going to do, and people need to get used to it. This is not disrespectful to Batman at all. It's not campy, and I think it's played out very well so far. The pilot episode wasn't perfect. I admit, they threw a bit too much into the episode, but I saw great potential in it. And one thing to keep in mind, this show is not called Gotham Central. It's not called Bruce Wayne. It's called Gotham. We're telling the origin stories of Batman / Bruce Wayne, Jim Gordon coming through the ranks of the GCPD. We're examining villains and auxiliary characters. The show is Gotham, maybe even more so than Smallville was Smallville, if you know what I mean by that. I do admit that the first episode had to learn a few lessons in subtlety, because there were a few times where it was like they might as well have just put a neon sign saying, okay, this guy is the Riddler. Catwoman, yeah, that was a little in your face, but, if she's pouring milk for cats, so what? What you need to remember is this show, like the movies, these are made for everybody, not just the 10% of the audience that reads comic books, so not everyone will get right off the bat that, hey, this street kid is Selina Kyle, the future Catwoman. Or maybe they'll need a refresher that Catwoman's true name is Selina Kyle. Don't take these things for granted. Let everybody enjoy these shows along with you. The Ivy Pepper thing, though, in the first episode, yeah, that was a little too obvious. This little girl, her name's Ivy, she's holding plants. But too many people are also complaining about her name being Ivy Pepper. One of the producers, it might have even been Bruno Heller, said in an interview that she's going to go through an arc too and perhaps get adopted, maybe by a family named the Isleys. So just wait for it. We're going to get there, and perhaps her adoptive name will be Pamela Isley. But part of me does think that there was a network executive or someone working on the show saying, hey, Poison Ivy's name isn't Ivy, we better fix that. It's highly possible something like that happened. I do think the standout character so far is the Penguin, played by Robin Lord Taylor. He's highly entertaining and unpredictable. We're seeing the Penguin that's politicking his way ruthlessly to the top of the Gotham underworld. One day he's going to be the crime boss, but how does he get there? And the Penguin has never really been one of my favorite villains, but I've enjoyed the interpretations of him given by Burgess Meredith and Danny DeVito. And Robin Lord Taylor might be better than even those guys when this is all said and done. I really like the kid who's playing Bruce Wayne, David Mazouz. He's a great dramatic fit for him. He's playing the role better than I thought a child actor could. I'll just say that. And it's what I've always felt about Bruce Wayne is that even though he's yet to travel the world, and who knows, maybe he won't in the series, maybe they'll take more of that Earth One inspiration because we're seeing a more rough around the edges Alfred, and they might play up his military background. And like in Batman Earth One, which they've said was an inspiration for this show, and we also had that interpretation on Beware the Batman. But in Batman Earth 1, you may remember Bruce Wayne never left Gotham. Any training he did was here in the city, and maybe so we don't have to say, oh, Bruce is abroad for 7, 8 years or something. Maybe he will just stay in Gotham. But the thing, not that I was getting at earlier before I got a little sidetracked with this, he's Batman the moment his parents were shot. That's how I always feel it. That's when the transformation happened. Child Bruce Wayne died there in the alley with Thomas and Martha. And you even see his stern penchant for justice is there, his wanting to test himself and conquer fear. It's already there. And at the end of episode 2, he's wondering what could he do for these orphan kids, give cash, donate clothes. He pretty much already is Batman to me, even though he, hasn't gone through developing pimples or whatnot yet in his life. But as I said, the pilot episode was a pretty solid effort at laying this groundwork, and I'd give that about a 7.5. But then we move on to the second episode titled Selina Kyle, and we finally get to hear her speak. And Selina Kyle, as I've probably said on the show before, is my favorite female character. I think that Cameron Beacondova is playing her very well. She's also a very good young actress. I believe she's 14. But she really had that, that spunk and, that edge to a street kid, and, it really feels like that is Selina Kyle there. And Corey Michael Smith is the Riddler. I see great potential in him as well going forward. We've seen him pop up a little here to help out with clues with the GCPD. But I really think that he's going to have some breakout episodes eventually. I kind of liked how in episode 2 he looked like just this creepy, socially awkward guy. And I think he's going to give us a really nice version of the Riddler that, I wasn't always hot on Jim Carrey's interpretation because it was just Ace Ventura in a green suit. Though, yes, Frank Gorshin was a bit comedic, but to date, Gorshin's my favorite live-action Riddler, but Corey Michael Smith may take the cake now. And I didn't care for John Astin on the 60s show when he filled in for 2 episodes. Ben McKenzie, I feel, is a great Jim Gordon, a very good straight arrow type character. Harvey Bullock, I kind of feel like he's going to go through some arc where he's a little more on the straight and narrow as we go down the line. Right now, he's just a guy who tries not to get killed in a corrupt city, and he is kind of a dirty cop now. But I think in the long run, he won't be. I think Jim Gordon's going to have a positive effect on him. The only character I'm not really warm on is Fish Mooney. I think that in episode 2, Jada Pinkett Smith was really overacting, and episode 2 I would give about an 8, even though I thought it was a lot better. I know half a point doesn't seem like much more, but I really feel that episode 2 illustrates the potential that lies in this series, and in upcoming episodes we're going to see the likes of Professor Pig, possibly the Scarecrow. Well, they've said they're doing the Scarecrow this year, but in the trailer for what's coming on this season, there's a guy that looks like the Scarecrow, but it's just one of the concerns we have is just too much too soon. And Smallville, over the course of 10 seasons, did have Clark meet big villains before he was Superman, but it took years to get there. We didn't get Brainiac, Zod, Doomsday, Metallo, Darkseid, Bizarro. We didn't get those all in season one. It took years to get there. So I want to see them do a little more of a slow burn. Apparently, season one of Gotham is going to be 16 episodes. So you don't even have to shove as much as you would into a 22 or 23 episode season that you would be getting on the CW. It's 16 or 18 episodes, something like that. I'm pretty sure it's 16. But I just, Nicholas D'Agosto has just been cast as Harvey Dent. He's going to be a young assistant district attorney, and hopefully in his early 20s or something, because I just feel like there are characters who are closer to Bruce's age, and there are some like the Penguin. It doesn't matter if they're a bit older than Bruce. But I don't know, maybe his career as Batman one day is going to be a bit easy when he's just beating up a bunch of old guys. But it keeps playing in my head when Jim Gordon's saying, I will clean up this city to Bruce Wayne, and then I just think of adding a line, you know what, Bruce? It's going to get a whole lot worse. So bad that you're going to have to dress up like a bat and take the law into your own hands. Before I start ranting any more about the series, I'll turn it over to you, Josh, and how about you give our listeners your thoughts on what we've seen so far, and do you think we're getting too much too soon, or is it just this is the origin of the totality of Gotham? And I was going to point out that, yes, Jonathan Crane is normally established as teaching at Gotham University or, having a job at Arkham Asylum or something before becoming the Scarecrow. So it'd be kind of odd if he's already the Scarecrow, but go ahead.
Well, I liked Gotham. I think that it's an enjoyable show. I will say that mentioned it to Eric. We were having a conversation about it since the first episode, and I'm not blown away by it. I think it's a slow burn. In all reality, I mean, granted, it's a superhero show, but if I had to compare it to something that's a little bit more in the normal range of something, I'd compare it to like I mean, for me personally, I'm not saying that it's equating it to that, but like TV's Castle, it's a show that I enjoy. But when I first started, I wasn't really blown away. It took a while to really grow on me, and as the characters grew on me, I was kind of like yes, 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 and enjoyed the show more. Once they build that universe, you can get a little more into the nuance of the characters, their interactions, things like that. I think it's a well-made show from the outset, but I never had that feeling of like, holy crap, this is incredible, like I did with like season one of Arrow, where they really hit the ground running. They started off with a bang, and they started off with, I mean, I think literally one of the very first images was bam, teaser shot of Deathstroke's mask, on the island. It was very much, starting us in that comic book mythos. And granted, we start out with essentially, streets of Gotham. Let's see Selina Kyle running around on rooftops, very comic book-esque, and then right into the scene of Bruce's parents being shot. Mixing up my superheroes there. Bruce's parents being shot in the alley. I mean, it's like super iconic imagery at this point. I actually saw, I think Eric might have seen it as well. It was like this super cut on YouTube of every single scene of Bruce's parents being shot from every form of media, from every movie and every like animated film, and it's pretty interesting when you realize it's been done like 6 or 7 or 8 times over different mediums. But I enjoy the show a lot. I will say that the biggest shock for me was actually how much I enjoyed Ben McKenzie's Jim Gordon, because I am not a fan of the actor. I have not been a fan of what I've seen of his work. I never watched The OC because that show was just god awful, but I caught maybe an episode of like Southland, I think, and I'm not a huge fan of the basic police procedural, so it didn't really do a whole lot for me. I mean, if you're going to do a procedural, you better have an interesting hook, a la, say, like TV's Sherlock or Elementary or something. But this is a little bit of that feeling. It's not a procedural. Like Eric said, it's not Gotham GCPD or Gotham Central. It's not concentrating solely on the police force of Gotham, and it shouldn't. It would really do itself a disservice if it did, because I mean, let's be honest. I mean, we might want to see um, the absolute fans, the hardcore fans might want every single thing that they can get from a particular given universe. But how many people want to watch the non-Batman, non-supervillain characters from the Batman universe in their day-to-day lives? I can't imagine that a ton of people would sit around and really, really put their time and their effort into that one, especially when there's so much television on and there's so much to easily absorb now. And everything from Netflix to Hulu to DVRs to instant streaming to hell illegal downloading. You better really have something that catches my attention if you want to get an hour, especially, or 42 minutes of my time. And I think that this show definitely has what it takes to be something truly exceptional. I think it's going to have to grow into it. To answer your original question of, is it too much too soon? Do I think that they maybe are putting a little too many, chefs in the kitchen, as it were, as far as introducing too many characters too quickly? Possibly. It's one of those things where I think I think that some of them are at this point unnecessary. I don't believe that they had to do so many introductions so soon. If they didn't introduce the Riddler's character in the first episode, hell, or even the second, I don't think they would have been hurt by it. I understand they wanted to introduce Selena Kyle. They introduced a new element into the mythos, which is that she witnessed the murder. I don't think that that's in any way a betrayal of the comic book character. It's like, they're around the same age. Who's to say that she never did? And in regular continuity, obviously they've never mentioned it, but I could easily see that as a comic book retcon if the story felt like it needed to go that route. Selena witnessed the murder, and that's why she's always had a connection. Maybe deep in her heart, she realized that this must be the man who became Batman or something like that. Who knows? But I'm impressed by the Penguin, the actor playing the Penguin, just as most people are. A lot of people, the entertainment reporters and whatnot, E! Online and Variety and a couple other people have reported about the show and done reviews. IGN, they're claiming him as really one of the breakout stars. However, I do think that the boy playing Bruce is definitely, that kid's an emotive little actor. I mean, he's definitely got that look in his eyes. I believed Eric caught the first episode before I did, and he kind of said to me, look at his face when he's talking to Jim Gordon. You can tell that this is a kid who's in his mind become what will be Batman. And you see like this literally physical transformation on his face. This is a really tormented kid. He's not only really tormented by what's happened, but he's mentally set himself on a path, and he's mentally set himself on what he's going to need to do in the future. He's on a quest for essentially vengeance, or if not vengeance, he's on a quest for justice for the rest of his life. He's on a quest to keep horrible things from happening to other people like they happen to him from here on out, and you can see it in his eyes, and that's a lot to say in a look. And I think the line was Jim Gordon's telling him that we didn't catch the real killer of your parents, and I don't want to necessarily spoil it. It's only a couple weeks out. Some people DVR these things for 2-3 weeks, so we won't get super spoilery. But he kind of says, we haven't found the real killer, but I promise you that I'm going to do this for you, or something in that regard. And Bruce Wayne's first response isn't, oh, this is horrible. You're telling me that the real killer is not, still out there. No, his first response is something along the lines of, good, because I want to see him again. And it's it's not I want to see him in a court of law. I want to see him brought to the United States law system's justice. It was very much good. Then I will have my own chance to exact my revenge or my justice on him. It was very telling. It was one of the most interesting things about the show. I really think Jada Pinkett's characters are a throwaway character. Fish Mooney, if she wasn't even there, the show would not in any way lack from it. I think one of her lackeys. I mean, granted, the guy's not a popular actor. He's a B actor who's been in a couple little things. I can't even remember the lackey's name. But he's just a low-level mob enforcer, essentially. If they would have literally cast that guy in her role and made it a male character, it would have been better. I'm not blown away by anything that she's done. I've seen her do good jobs in certain films, and I'm not in any way impressed by what she's doing in this show. As far as some of the other characters are concerned, I really liked Donald Logue's Harvey Bullock. I think he did a fantastic job. He'll continue to get better, and his relationship with Gordon is going to be very interesting. But I'm trying to think if I have really anything else to input as far as the first couple episodes. I think that the second one was an improvement over the first. I just think it's really a matter of time before we really see, what's going to happen with some of the characters and the character interactions. But any other little things to input, Eric, before we kind of maybe move on and talk about some other stuff?
Yeah, I'll mention a few more things. I was thinking about when the show was originally announced about a year ago, and people really felt that it was going to be a Gotham Central type adaptation. And then you run into the problem that, hey, where's Batman? He's out there, but we can't have him on the show. I'm going to say something a little similar when we talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Shortly in this show. But they solve that problem by saying, oh, he's not Batman yet. But down the line, we're thinking, they said the show will lead up to when he puts on the cape and cowl, so I don't know if they expect this show to be on the air 10, 15 seasons, or if maybe we're going to get time jumps between seasons, possibly. But Gotham does not exist in the universe of any of the feature films. So like Smallville, you're kind of thinking, I want to see the Batman that David Mazouz will become. And you kind of didn't have to stretch your imagination too much on Smallville because Clark already had powers. He was developing more powers as the series went on in Smallville. And, in the latter final 3 seasons, I should say, Clark developed this dual identity. He wasn't quite yet Superman. He was proto-Superman. He just didn't have the name or fly, but he was saving people. And, first he he was the red blue blur, then he had the trench coat, and then he had the red leather jacket, and he was evolving into Superman. And then we did get a comic book, finally, Smallville season 11, which is free of budget constraints of a TV show, and it's canonical with the show, and you get to see the Superman that Tom Welling became. I wouldn't doubt it if whenever Gotham concludes its run that we see Gotham season whatever, and we see the Batman that David Mazouz becomes, because that would certainly be cool. And again, I think it would have the Earth One type feel to it. I When you were comparing it to other shows, yeah, I don't feel that it's going to be as good as Arrow. It's too soon to judge The Flash. It's too soon to judge Gotham, but Arrow is very unashamedly a superhero show, and that's one reason why so many people love it, is just because it's unabashedly throwing all this stuff from the DC universe at you. And they haven't ruled out crossovers with Gotham or vice versa, but it's hard because they're on different networks and might be dealing with uh, different periods in time. Trying to gather whatever miscellaneous thoughts I still have on Gotham here, but
Yeah, we've talked about some of the things that you've mentioned, as far as, and yeah, are they gonna potentially cross over, and where's the show gonna go from here, and yeah, if they're gonna do time jumps. The thing I was gonna mention before I forgot, in that regard, was, I don't know how many people have watched the show Rome, or who have watched maybe TV's Vikings, but both of those shows in 2 seasons had a young character who was a major character, and they went and did a time leap into the future, maybe 5 or 6 years, and they recast the young, 12, 13, 14-year-old actor as a, early adult, maybe in the 17, 18, maybe up to the 20-year-old age. And the original actors for both in Rome, like I said, a young 12, 13-year-old kid, and in Vikings, I think it was the same. Really, really good young actors. I almost felt bad for them, in the fact that they had been essentially kicked off the show and replaced for the constraints of telling the story that they wanted to tell. None of the adult actors had been recast, but I'm sorry, you can't have a 12-year-old playing Batman regardless of how much you love the actor. This kid's definitely got the chops, and I bet we'll see David Mazouz go on and do some really cool things. But if they decide to do a time leap and recast a maybe even 4 or 5 year old 5 years older actor than David Mazouz in his teens, to further develop, I can only imagine them doing it until, give us the extremely attractive muscular guy, doing his Stephen Amell impression, climbing the salmon ladder, in his Batcave workout room. I'm sure that would attract quite a few female and some male viewers as well. But I could see them doing that. And the thing is that the fact that Rome did it without a hitch and Vikings has done it without a hitch. Granted, obviously it's a bigger character, it's Bruce Wayne and it's Batman, but they could definitely do it if it's done well and you believably go, wow, yeah, that's exactly who he would be when he grows up in 5 years. I think that it could be done. So it's an interesting concept. But yeah, I don't know. Is this show going to be on for 5 seasons, 10 seasons? I doubt 10. That's just an impressive feat on any network whatsoever. It's So far, this show does not have the Smallville feel to me. Granted, I don't want to say a much bigger Superman fan, but I'm a bigger Superman fan than I am a Batman fan. I like the character of Superman more, and the ideals of Superman more than I like the same of Batman. But I love Batman. I mean, it's freaking Batman, for God's sakes. So I hope that they do the character in this show its justice. and it doesn't, get foxed, which is to say, have people really, really love it and then get canceled after 2 seasons.
Yeah, I'm with you there. That's what a lot of people were worried about. But I don't think that we're necessarily going to get a shirtless Bruce Wayne because I don't think Fox has the mandate that every series we put out has to have shirtless men in it. I'm pretty
For
sure that's a mandate for
the CW,
CW.
you might be right. Although it's working wonders for Arrow, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I think there actually is a thing Stephen Amell has to be shirtless in every episode, but it CW always focused on primetime dramas geared toward women. With I think now they're we had Smallville and Supernatural, but I think now they're trying to nail both sides of the aisle. But you remember years ago, I think it's when they released information for, I think it was Smallville season 8, and one of the things it said featuring great visual effects and handsome men. I just, everyone thought that was kind of funny, and it was just,
Because it absolutely attracts women to a film or a television show is great visual effects.
and I just,
Like it would have been better if they would have been like great costuming.
I, and then when we got all those boylicious ads for arrows and comic books last year, it was like,
Yeah, I did think those those were a little out
every,
of place.
yeah, if you're not someone who reads comic books, maybe you saw the ads online. Every member of the principal cast of Arrow, aside from Paul Blackthorne, because maybe they thought he was too old,
Yeah,
but they
or she had
had
salt and
them,
pepper chest hair.
they had them shirtless and greased up. They each had their own
Listen,
individualized
they weren't greasy; they were
appearances.
sweaty from all the fighting and the working out. All right.
They were Tim Capello without a saxophone,
Tim
pretty
Capello
much.
without a saxophone. Yeah, it was really ridiculous. I mean, there's nothing that's. I don't want to say it's emasculating, but it's almost like it was just a tidbit homoerotic to be reading a comic book. Yeah, I'm just gonna enjoy my latest issue of my favorite character, Superman. Here. Oh well, if it isn't Stephen Amell without a shirt. Oh well, if it isn't Manu Bennett without a T-shirt. Oh well, if it is, it was like every single one. What I did think was very humorous was that the female characters were in no way sexualized in their portrayals in the print ads. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
It was like
It,
turning it on its head.
Yeah, because they would often also put these ads on the back covers, and I'm someone who will unashamedly read my comic books in public. And I'm sitting there reading my comic book, and to passerbys, it looks like I'm reading Beefcake magazines.
You're reading a Playgirl forum.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was kind of ridiculous. I mean, it's bad enough that, I'm walking into my apartment building with a brown paper bag and I gotta tell passerbys it's like, oh, it's comic books. It's comic books. And then one slides out and it's just, a shirtless guy.
yeah.
I'm like, no, really, I swear, this is a comic book show. Um, I'm gonna
Discreet
go
brown bag.
go into my apartment now and read comic books. Yeah, I don't know what that's all about. But yeah, I don't know if they're gonna have a buff, sweaty Bruce Wayne working out in the future. But I literally could see, I can visualize that image. I mean, almost it would be a complete copying of something that they've done in Smallville or
Oh,
Arrow now. But I could see it happening if they do a flash forward in time.
I think we'd get a lot of angry letters. Well, Fox would get a lot of angry letters if we had a buff, sweaty David Mazouz working out at this point in time.
Yeah, yeah, that's no, we don't want to increase the creep factor on something like that. I mean, I do think it's kind of funny because, well, funny being the lack of the correct word, a little disturbing is the better word. That yes, this is the hypersexualized, often character of Catwoman is being played by a 14-year-old girl. Obviously, they're making her look quite a bit like the costume of a Catwoman. She's
Yeah,
got the
happy to see the
goggles and
goggles.
yeah, she's got the goggles, the colored goggles and when she puts them on her head, it's almost shades of Anne Hathaway's costume, where it kind of looks like cat ears in some shots. And I will say that my wife thinks it as well. She looks a lot like a young Michelle Pfeiffer, and
I
maybe,
said that too.
yeah, I wonder if it had something to do with the casting. But she seems like she's a decent enough little actress. I mean, I'm not knocking her in any way, shape, or form, but I do think it's funny that it's like, yes, take this hypersexualized comic book character. She perpetuates sex. She uses it as a weapon, literally, and her appeal at the very least. And when you least expect it, bam, attack. It's you saw it in Batman Returns. You've seen it in even Dark Knight Rises. I could see it happening eventually in this show, and again, if they end up recasting her, if they do a flash forward as well, I'm sure we'll see plenty of that. But yeah, it makes it a little disturbing to think, yes, this little girl is Catwoman, Selena Kyle.
Yeah,
But
but if they don't do a flash forward and it's still on in 4 or 5 years when she is 18, they're gonna do what they do in every TV show. Once she hits 18, all bets are off.
oh yeah, just
They're gonna be
busty.
immediate
Yeah,
with
they've
next
done it.
year.
What was the one show? I noticed that they did it on Modern Family. The second the oldest daughter turned 8. Well, her character. The thing is that
He
interestingly
turned
enough,
18.
yeah. Well, no, they didn't do it when the actual actress turned 18. They did it when the character turned 18 because
Yeah, because she's a little older, right?
yeah, she's like 20, she's like 24 or 25, but I think they would have thought it was in poor taste. But the second that character graduated high school in that show, it was like boom with the cleavage shots, with the diamond shirt cutouts, and yeah, it was absolutely disturbing because you're like, yeah, this is this little kid. But I think they also did it in I remember seeing the print work from some Amanda Bynes show, some horrible Amanda Bynes show that might have been on the
What I like
CW.
about you.
What I like about you, I don't know why you know that, but yeah, what I like about you, the second she turned 18, they hypersexualized the show, the story, the plot lines, and obviously her outfits. Maybe that's why Amanda Bynes is absolutely fucking crazy in real life now, but who knows? Anyway. Well, how about we move on to, unless you have anything else to say, Gotham. All right. So first things first, let's give our rating.
I already did.
You already did. Oh, you did give your rating. I'm sorry. When on our formerly our sister show, the Humber Bronto show, we would kind of give it a should we watch it rating. Is this worth your time rating? So I'll give both. I would give it so far right now a 7.5 or an 8. Both episodes, my overall review of the 2 episodes. A should you watch it? Is it worth your time? Or should you wait and like stream it in a year when it's on Netflix? I think that if you're a patient person and you'd rather binge watch the show, okay, watch it on Netflix in a year when it starts streaming. But shows like this are not going to be around, especially on Fox, if they don't get viewers. If you like Batman, if you like the universe of Batman, watch the show. It's going to get more ratings. They're going to have it go on longer, and I will give it the you should watch it. You should DVR it and watch it every week. It's going to get better, and I think that the show is going to grow into something that's going to be very enjoyable. And that's pretty much my final thoughts on it.
All right, we'll now move on to Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's very important we put the branding in there.
Yeah, it's the name of the show, right? It's right in there.
So we don't think it's IDW's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or something like that.
God forbid it be anything but.
So this will be a little bit one-sided for me because Josh isn't too familiar with the show. We've talked about it many episodes ago when I was talking about the first season, but listeners will probably agree with me. I've always been lukewarm on the show, and I know a lot of people don't like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but after viewing the first 2 episodes of Season 2, I think I'm about ready to throw in the towel. It's a show, essentially, how are Z-list characters affected by the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Now, you may be wondering, if you're not too hot on the show, why are you watching it anyway? Why did you watch the first season? Well, mostly because I was looking for something to kill time in that hour leading up to Supernatural. Now, this season, it's on at the same time as Supernatural, and Supernatural premieres next week. And do I want to take an hour out of my next day to watch a show on demand that I don't especially care for? The answer is no. Most of the first season of Shield was bad to okay. And then once we got the fallout from Captain America the Winter Soldier with all the Hydra stuff, it became better and intriguing, but it was totally reliant on the fact that you saw Captain America the Winter Soldier. It was stuff like, oh, hey, Captain America did this out of nowhere. You do not need to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to enjoy the movies, but you have to watch the movies to enjoy Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It can't really exist on its own. And like I said, these are characters who you can't really give a shit about for the most part. I'm sorry, I don't care about Coulson. I know people like him for some reason. There are things likable about the character, but resurrecting him wasn't that necessary, and now that Shield is pretty much dismantled, it makes the show feel unnecessary. I'll throw the word superfluous out there, and I know that during season one, ratings kept taking a dive, and it'll probably happen again. I don't know how long this show can go on for, but I think, the average movie slash TV watcher, when they saw all those promos leading up to the series premiere of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they were showing footage from the Avengers in those TV spots, and people were probably tuning in thinking, oh, I'm going to get to see Iron Man or Captain America. Sure, Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury showed up, but I can barely even remember what he did. I think he, switched control over to Coulson because he's supposed to be legally dead. But it wasn't a totally necessary cameo. You're never going to get cameos from the big Avengers type characters, and if they do, you know what? They're just going to come over to say hi. You're not going to see, Chris Evans or Robert Downey Jr. spend a week or two shooting an episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because they have more valuable things to do with their time and bigger fish to fry. It's it's really unnecessary. And yes, they're introducing more characters from the comics, but people that tune into a superhero show want a superhero show. And like I said earlier with Gotham, Gotham isn't even really that comparable to this because he's not Batman yet. You don't have Commissioner Gordon saying, "Oh, I wonder how Batman would feel about this case." But he can never make an appearance on the show. No, Gotham solved the problem by saying he's not Batman yet. We can talk about Captain America, Iron Man, Thor on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but we're never going to see them. And now, we're getting Adrienne Palicki as Mockingbird, who has connections to Hawkeye. And maybe I will tune into, well, at least watch on demand the episodes that have decently prominent characters from the comics show up. I'll watch it here and there to see how it pans out, but they're like, oh, possibly she'll be in an Avengers movie. And I'm just thinking, are you out of your fucking mind? Really? They're going to introduce an Avenger through this show? I don't think so. You know what? She'll show up for like a 5-minute cameo maybe in a movie, but no, she's not going to be a major player with the Avengers, and I sure as hell don't see a West Coast Avengers movie happening eventually. I think by Avengers 4 we're going to see a dramatic lineup change to the team, but it's not going to be a bunch of B and C list characters. And I'm by no means a Marvel basher. You listeners of this show know I prefer DC, but I want superheroes. And Daredevil's one of my favorite Marvel characters, and the Daredevil Netflix series will probably be much more up my alley. So I'm anticipating that in 2015. And I'm just going to have to say, other than a few episodes here and there, so long, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. What do you have to say, Josh?
Well, every single time that I've kind of been tempted to give it the old college try. I'm not going to say that I'm not plausible as far as my desire to watch it or my likelihood to watch the show. I will say that I do enjoy. There are certain shows that I prefer to binge watch. Shows that I'm not as absolutely crazy about. Shows that I don't have to see week to week. I mean, Game of Thrones. Guess what? I'm going to watch it every single Sunday when it comes on the next season. Walking Dead. I'm going to watch it every single week, or at the very least, I'm going to watch it the very next day. I'm not going to, bank up 5, 6 episodes of a particular show. Again, a show like Castle, I enjoyed the show, but I just finished up the last season and I caught the season premiere a week after it aired. It's just I delegate my time to certain things that I like, and the things that I like the most are getting the top of my time. They're getting my they're getting my immediate time. And if I have a lazy Saturday that I'm sitting around, guess what? Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. might get that time in the future. It might not. I have the series, the entire first 2 seasons of Grimm. I have the first entire season of Sleepy Hollow. I have half a season of Masters of Sex. I watch a lot of television. I download a lot of it. And I have a lot of shows that I'll eventually catch up on. I haven't finished season 7 of Burn Notice, a show that I love, because I just haven't had the time to get around to it. I'll probably bang that entire show out in a weekend one day. I just haven't had the time to do it. But Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., every time I go to spend some time to actually sit down and watch the show, I hear another thing that makes me not even want to bother. And it makes me laugh when people talk about things like, yeah, Adrian Palicki's character is, oh, she's going to eventually be in a Marvel movie. And I kind of laugh because if she was going to be a movie star, she'd be a movie star already. She's been on almost exclusively on television shows. She's tried to make a transition into film and hasn't really been successful. And the thing that makes me laugh about, oh, eventually they're going to have Chris Evans, or they're going to have, I'll tell you what, you're going to have Robert Downey literally behind Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson this year, the most bankable Hollywood star on the planet, the most money-making star on the planet, guy who made $50 million 2 years in a row. He was one. I think it was 2013. He literally didn't work the entire year and still made more money than every other actor on the planet just from his residuals from Avengers and Iron Man 3. Yeah, that guy is going to spend a weekend or a week doing a 2-minute cameo in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Not unless he's fucking contractually obligated to do so. He sure as shit ain't going to do it because he believes in the product. I absolutely, unequivocally believe that. And yeah, I could see maybe Jeremy Renner doing it. Maybe Jeremy Renner. I could maybe see, I almost said Eric Bana. I could maybe see Ruffalo doing it. But guess what? Scarlett Johansson, guess what? She was just in Lucy, very successful. She's been in several popular movies. She ain't going to make an appearance. Hell, Colby Smulders is not going to be in that show.
She has been.
She has been on the show?
Yeah.
Okay, she's made appearances. I know for a fact that she has been quoted several times as saying that she does not want to get tied down to another television show after having been in How I Met Your Mother for 9 seasons. So she's not going to sign a contract and get tied to that show even though she's been on it. I guarantee you that she's going to make minor appearances, as she obviously already has. Again, I haven't watched it, but how many episodes has she been in? 1, maybe 2? I mean,
a few. I think it was in like some of the latter episodes of the season. But yeah, even though you weren't totally familiar with her status on the show, that goes to show you, yes, Kobe Smulders' Maria Hill is kind of too big for Agents of Shield.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually surprised that they were able to. If they hadn't killed him off in Avengers, I'm surprised that the actor playing Coulson, they ended up, not like this guy was this huge bankable star or anything like that, but at that point he was kind of like the lovable. He was almost like the bigger part Stan Lee of the Marvel universe, and it was kind of interesting that he had been in every movie and people did like him, even if it was like, oh, he shows up, ha ha ha. Oh, he's friends with Pepper Potts. That's funny. I think that I think the fact that someone like Colby Smulders hasn't signed a contract to be on that show on the regular, which you would think that I guarantee that they tried. I guarantee that they tried to do it, and she probably was like, sorry, I'm committed to How I Met Your Mother until that show ended, and then after it did, hey, I'm not going to sign a contract to be on another show for another God knows how long, how many seasons. It was the same reason I recently read an article talking about how Jason Segel was so happy to finally get out of the contract to do How I Met Your Mother and finally finish it up. You know why? Because his movie career was absolutely fucking exploding. He wrote and starred in two films that were quite successful. She's been in at least a couple Marvel films now. Yeah, she's going to continue to rise and be a rising star, and she's been in at least 3 films that I'm aware of in the last 5 years. One of them, I think, was some, I don't know, garbage Nicholas Sparks adaptation, but still, I mean, you're in a movie, you're in a movie. Jeremy Renner, even he hasn't been gigantic, but Bourne Ultimatum and Avengers, and he's been in a couple films. I mean, yeah, he's also a star on the rise. He's not going to make the transition back to TV. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. No one gives a shit about Z characters. I'm sorry. I mean, guess what? In the comic books, you can tell really good stories that don't include the A-list cast and show us why these characters not only A, still exist and are still around, and they haven't been killed off and, as some tragic, B story or something like that, but, you give us that character who dies horribly. But I don't know. I could be completely wrong in this. I could be blown away by Agents of Shield and say, hey, Eric's an asshole. He's completely wrong. I enjoyed the show. I think you're over estimating how bad you think it is. But there's been way too many people who have a very similar mindset and very similar taste as I do, who have said this show isn't really worth a whole lot of our time. And I think the people who are hoping that it's going to get great are being extraordinarily optimistic. But time will tell. I mean, if it finishes up a second season and I hear that things get much better, I'll probably spend the time to catch up on it. But probably then and only then. But let's wrap up. We got about 6-7 minutes left to the hour. You want to wrap up with new comics, Eric?
Yeah, this will mostly be you discussing it because I didn't go to the shop this week, nor did I contribute any reviews to the sites I write for. But I will say to keep your eyes peeled to darkknightnews.com next Tuesday. I have a review of a graphic novel on the way, so that's something you can look forward to. Perhaps I'll be able to discuss new comics more in a future episode, but you wanted to discuss some stuff you've read recently, so I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, actually, one of the first Marvel comics I've bought in ages. I picked up the first 2 issues of Death of Wolverine, and they're really good. I will say that if I had to compare them to something, granted, it's not as great. I like Charles Soule a lot, but as far as a comparison, it's in 2 issues reminding me a little bit of the Alan Moore Superman opus, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, where it was essentially the going away story and farewell story to the Golden Age Superman. This a little bit reminds me of that for Wolverine. I think that they feel as though the time has expired on the character of Wolverine in the comics. They've told a lot of the stories that they want to tell with him, at least for this point in time. And how do we keep telling these? I will say the one thing that Marvel has that DC does not, almost exclusively, is that they do have a pretty consistent habit of killing off characters and not bringing them back for long periods of time, if ever. Gwen Stacy's been dead, and Gwen Stacy's been dead since the 70s. Yeah, she might have just died in your new favorite Spider-Man film, but she's been dead in the comics since the 70s, maybe even the late 60s. I don't know the actual date. And they've killed off several other characters. So especially after like their big crossover events when they really kind of clean house or try to make significant changes. I remember, House of M, where they did the big, killed off, or not. I'm sorry, not necessarily killed off, but removed the powers of the majority of the mutants in the entire universe. They felt like things had gotten so dirty in the universe that they were like, hey, we need to play cleanup. There's too many fucking mutants. Everyone in the whole goddamn planet's a mutant. Let's get it down to a couple hundo, and that's what they did. And of course, the big stars like Magneto and Wolverine and Charles Xavier and others, Phoenix and whatnot, kept their powers. So I kind of see this as a natural progression of that. They're playing a little bit of cleanup. Wolverines had some fairly successful runs at small mini series like Wolverine Origin. I think that was a 4-issue or 5-issue arc itself, maybe even 3. And when we finally found out his real name, was it James Harlow or something like that?
Howlett.
How it? That's right. That's right. It's been a while since I've read that. That's a pretty that was a pretty acclaimed storyline as well. It shows that, hey, he's been around forever. I think that's when they first found out that he was popping bone claws instead of metal claws. It was not part of his Weapon X origin. It was
bone claws.
He was popping bone claws. Yeah, he was he was popping bone claws because it was part of his natural mutation. It was not part of the Weapon X project, that gave him the claws and stuff like that. There's little interesting takes on Wolverine, but it's very much like it starts off from the second it opens to it's like a beautiful farewell to Wolverine. It touches on all the things that make him Wolverine. He's in British Columbia in some remote fucking cabin, just waiting for people to come to him and, okay, let's come get some, bub, that whole thing. And the comic, I will say, they're $5 a piece, which is a lot for a comic book, but as far as a well-made physical comic book, Marvel, absolutely, the covers are beautiful. The way that they finished the covers, they're a real clean, shiny. They remind me of the old Batman, Superman books. Clean, shiny covers, really gorgeous, clean covers as far as the art's concerned. The inside of the books, they almost look like you would see something in a collected edition, as far as like bookended art on either side of the inside cover. And there's quite a bit of supplementary material right at the end, even though this is not like a director's cut version of the book. So they're giving you a lot for your money, but it is quite an expensive book, $5 for a comic book, especially when you can, Amazon and buy, hell, $5 would buy you 5 books on Amazon. If you just were a big reader. In digital comic books, you could buy 5 comic books for $5. You could buy decent ones for that much. So it's a lot of money for the average reader to drop. But I know it'll probably be worth some money in a little while. And if I get sold to sign it, it'd be a nice addition to my collection. It'd be a nice thing to have as far as Marvel books are concerned. But it's great. It's really well written. Like I said, it's a beautiful homage to the character. They touch on a lot of his history. They have a little bit of, like I said, very much the character of Wolverine. They touch on a lot of the different storylines in his past. They mention the fact of, he's his extreme age. They mentioned the fact that the Japan's Big Japan saga that's been the influence for the Wolverine movie, the titled The Wolverine, lately that one that just came out, which actually the one of the primary villains is Viper, which she was in the movie as well. So I think it's going to end up pretty good, and probably be one of the better Marvel stories to come out in the last 5-10 years. And we'll have to see if Soul brings it to a really nice close. But I do suggest picking it up if you have a chance. If you read digitally, or if you want to pick up the issues, or eventually when it comes out and collect it, it'll definitely be worth your money. But yeah, that's it. I've read a couple other, Walking Dead and a few other Superman books and whatnot, but nothing that was really extraordinarily significant. Me and Eric wanted to talk about. We mentioned it before, and I'll do a brief mention of it. There was some stuff with the Future's End. Eric, do you want to talk about this at all?
No, my computer is about to burst into flames, so we should probably wrap it up.
All right, all right. The only thing I'll say is we want to talk about some stuff in the in the Future's End stuff that's been mentioned briefly recently, and we'll talk about it in a future episode. But it has something to do with the universe of the New 52 versus the pre-52 universe, and we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it as a little teaser, but. Well, let's
Um,
wrap it up then. Anything else to say?
no, I'll just say that uh, I might be back with an episode. If I do it tomorrow with a guest on the show, I've still yet to hammer out the specifics with her, but it'll probably just be myself, Sans Josh, hosting, but it'd be the first time we've ever done two shows in 1 week. So we're recording this on Friday, October 3rd, so the other episode will possibly be up this Saturday. If not, maybe we'll do it next week. And in our next episode, maybe we'll get to talk about the premieres of Arrow, The Flash, and possibly even Supernatural as well. And then don't forget to check out our blog page at multiverseentertainment.wordpress.com and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/a podcast for all seasons. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks for joining us and listening to the show. We'll be back next week with, there's lots of big things happening. This is the first in one of several new comic book related shows that will be coming out and we'll be talking about over the course of the season. So thanks for listening to us, and we'll talk to you guys next time.